Yeah, some injury updates, some pretty good stuff. Tyler Stephenson could start a rehab assignment next Tuesday. Reds taking it very slow with him, as you would understand, being a catcher, but that's certainly a positive news that there's an actual date that they're targeting, because they've kind of been very um, kept in their thoughts on that. Wade Miley threw 3 innings in Arizona today and could start a rehab assignment soon. Talk about him in a second. And then Rhett Lowder threw a bullpen on Tuesday. He got up and down, so a little more than I think just your first bullpen. I'm guessing he's thrown a few at this point. So I don't think we need much of a conversation about Tyler. You know what? Let me ask you this about Tyler Stevenson. I mean, I think Tyler Stevenson is clearly would be a big help to this team. I've been very much against Tyler Stephenson DH or first base, but given kind of where the Reds are at, given that they've got Jose Trevino, who, I don't know if we've really given Jose Trevino enough credit. I don't know if there is enough credit there, but the pitching's pitched very well. And does Trevino have any sort of help hand in that? I think it's possible. I mean, the guy was known as a elite defensive catcher and a great game caller, and the Reds, gave him a contract extension right before the season started. So there may be something with that. I wouldn't be opposed to DHing Tyler Stephenson a little bit more. I'm not completely abandoning catching by any means, but I wouldn't be against DHing him a little bit, especially kind of given where the Reds offense is right now. Now, maybe at some point, you get to a point where enough guys step up that you don't need him there, but I would fully support them DHing him a few times, at least where they're at now.
I think that let me just say a couple things. Austin Wynn's caught for Hunter Green the other day when he almost threw, basically complete game shutout. So I don't want to sit here and act as if it's all Trevino. The starting pitching is good. The bullpen has been good. How much of that's Trevino? Who knows? I will openly also say today, in a night like tonight, Trevino picked a ball out of the dirt, get runners on first and second. He misses that ball. Guys go to second and third. Game probably changes a little bit. It's just something you gloss over when you're watching the game because a guy made a play. You only really notice those mistakes when they don't make them, right? They get magnified. So I do think that there's some value, and you already know how I feel about the defensive side when it comes to just what this Reds team needs to be. They need to be solid fundamentally. And fundamentally sound defensively for them to be even remotely competitive for this division, in my opinion. So the reason that Tyler Stephenson, we wanted him to catch, and we were so adamant about him catching, and you specifically, probably even when I first met you, you were pretty passionate about this, is that the value that Tyler Stephenson has from an overall league perspective when you're looking at it is catching, because then you kind of have a leg up there offensively over the rest of the league, or most of the rest of the league, when it comes to Tyler Stephenson. If you put Tyler Stephenson at first base or you put him at DH, immediately when you look at just Tyler Stephenson from an overall league value standpoint, he dwarfs, right? He's average at best at that point, maybe even a little bit below average at times, just because of his offensive output should not resemble what you should expect out of a first baseman and or a DH. But let's face it, that's the area right now that this Reds team is getting little to no production out of, oddly enough. How that came to be, I don't know. You can obviously figure it out on your own if you're a Reds fan why that is. But I'm with you, Nick. It's like I don't want to try to mess up the mojo that exists right now that is, hey, Trevino's a pretty solid defensive catcher. He seems to be I don't want to say meshing. He just seems to be meshing well with the flow of the team as well. Like it just seems like it makes sense to keep him there. And Tyler Stephenson also, from an injury history perspective, maybe it's nicer if he can DH or play first base every so often. I'm not opposed to it. I also think he's probably going to have to catch a couple times a week regardless. So if you want to consider him the backup catcher, but then also DHs and or plays first base a couple more times that week to where he's in the lineup almost every day, that's probably the path forward that makes the most sense. Whether they do that or not, I don't know. And he kind of feels like the same way that Espinal feels like, right, with DHing in first base. He kind of needs to get kicked out of that role at some point. So if someone else starts to play really, really well, and then all of a sudden this guy's hot and has a three or four hit day, and you feel like, you know what, I really want to keep this guy in the lineup. What do we do? Well, then just put Stephenson back behind the plate and we'll roll with it. But until then, we need anybody that can, hit water if they fell out of a boat in the lineup. And I think Tyler Stephenson would probably fit that role.
Yeah, Trevino has not caught more than 2 games in a row. It's been basically 2-1, 2-1 almost the whole season so far. So, yeah, I mean, I think if Stevenson just replaced wins and you still let, Trevino take about 60% of the starts, 60-70% of the starts, and then Stevenson DHs, I think that would be a good kind of way to ease Stevenson back in. Certainly, I would like the Reds DH to have a little bit higher ceiling than Tyler Stephenson, but I also would very much like the Reds DH to have a much higher floor like Tyler Stephenson has. So kind of where you're at, I would be all supporting that. The other thing that's interesting, Trace, is Wade Miley. Still a long ways to go because they're obviously going to exhaust, as long as they can keep him down in the minors, unless they're starting pitching injuries. But could create a pretty interesting situation. Let's say Nick Martinez is still, okay. Let's say, Andrew Abbott maybe scuffles a little bit. Do they put Wade Miley into the rotation if he pitches well in Louisville just to kind of keep an extra arm? Because he does have an opt-out. That's kind of the interesting,
right,
kind of caveat with Wade Miley. And if he goes and pitches well in Triple-A, you better believe someone across baseball is going to want his services.
Yeah, he's like, is Andrew, not Andrew Abbott, is Wade Miley going to be the Mike Ford of this year? This guy's sitting down there. He throws the ball really, really well, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, we got to get this guy up here. We got to get him up here, or else he's gonna leave." And then he does leave, comes back. I don't know. I'm not gonna make much about Wade Miley. I thought the guy was cooked a couple years ago. Turns out he wasn't totally cooked. I guess I'll give you this. If I want to play this game that you're playing right now, I'm not gonna go too far down this rabbit hole because I don't think it exists. But let me play your fun little game here. I think that if there's a semblance of a chance that if the bullpen struggles a little bit and Wade Miley's throwing the ball pretty well, I think that they would consider moving Martinez to the bullpen in spurts to try to bolster up maybe a hole down there that they think that exists. Currently it doesn't. But if Ashcraft were to, and that's the other thing too. You're talking about injuries from a starting pitching perspective. I would even say there's a chance for an injury or two from a bullpen perspective that could also allow maybe Wade Miley to find himself in the starting rotation because Nick Martinez does have that flexibility, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast, which is Nick Martinez, right? It's kind of like as soon as you show you can do something in the workplace, even though, especially if you show that you're one of the better people at it, even though you might not deserve to get demotion or deserve to be told you have to do these things, it's almost like, hey, you do it because you're the best at it. You're the only guy that can do it, so you go do that. And that seems like Nick Martinez might find himself in that situation a few times this year.
Yeah, I know everyone's just move Nick Martinez to the bullpen. I'm interested to see what Nick Martinez, how he bounces back from these first 3 starts, because he was really, really good as a starting pitcher at the end of last year.
Yeah.
It's 3 starts, and in those 3 starts, he pitched pretty well early in those starts, just ran into trouble at the end. So we'll see. We'll see what Nick Martinez does. That's going to be a big. There's a lot of factors that go into what you would do with Wade Miley. He is certainly someone though to kind of keep your eyes on and on what's going on with the big league team. I love that he's an option. I love that he's an option. Starting pitching right now feels great. Everyone's excited. Everyone is over the moon about it.
Right.
But it can also falter really quickly too. So I refuse to ever get too high on a starting pitching staff.
Nick Martinez also, if we remember last year, struggled a little bit as a starter, got moved to the bullpen for a short amount of time. Injuries then occurred again from the starting pitching perspective, got moved back to that starting role, Nick, and then pitched really, really well the rest of the year. So I'm not suggesting that they have to do the exact same thing, but maybe he's a slow starter from a starting pitching perspective. And that's one way to look at it possibly. But I'm to be very clear, I don't know if I came off this way. To be very clear, I'm not out on Nick Martinez being a starter. He can continue being a starter. I'm just trying to provide glimpses as to reasons as to why he would move to certain areas because he's capable of doing it while others aren't. Simple as that.